final site, talking. I've had weekly meetings with them to kind of get a website up and running. So right now we're working on getting something. It's going to be more of the primary stuff, the stuff that's really important on the website for July 1st. We've worked with a photographer here because one of the great things about our new website is we're going to have student pictures on the website. This is going to take advantage of some board policy that was changed 2 years ago, allowing for more student work up there. So we're going to be working with that. I'm currently going through the photo regulations and all that stuff, so parents will be seeing that for pictures getting up there. Rick Wood and I have been talking a lot with Dr. Sell and the admin team about the organization and the overall flow of the website. Excuse me. And we've been working on converting pages. Currently we have over 100 pages converted from the old site, and this has been manual conversions from the old site to the new, so everything's been started over from scratch. All the wording has been revised and looked at and gone through there. As I said, we're looking at this as a thoughtful process, making sure the information that goes up there is up there for a long haul. It's not just immediate stuff that's just there for the summer. So as I said, what you're going to see in July 1st is priority items first. As the summer goes on, more information will be forthcoming. More items will be added to it, more elements to the website design. Teacher websites will be down over the summer. There is some information about the different grade levels. Teacher training is expected to start up again in the fall to get new teacher websites and do things like that up there. So that's just the brief update.
I just mentioned too that we're using as a photographer an alumna from Beecher Road Schools who was in the high school, and this young lady excels in the arts, and she excels in photography, the visual arts too. So she's been coming around and doing quite a bit of photography work here at the school. And we asked her, we gave her the charge of saying, well, you know, you enjoyed your years at the school here. You've told what's unique about Beecher Road School. Try to capture it through the eyes of a student and someone who's recently graduated from the school.
And I forgot to tell you, Dr. This actually news. One of the employees at Final Site who's reviewing our code is a Beecher alumni as well.
Wow.
They're everywhere. They're
Stretch of Beecher Road School.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford, and the tech team for the work that you've been doing.
Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Crawford? Because I know you're not staying. No. Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
The next part of the report is the school climate report. We've talked a lot this past year and given reports about our academics. We've spoken about wellness, physical education, and so on. But the social emotional development of our children is a very, very high priority at the school. We're blessed with an outstanding staff. We have 2 child psychologists working full-time and a part-time social worker. And Mrs. Haverkamp is very, very much involved, especially with the school climate committee. So I'll ask Ms. Haverkamp and Dr. Rose to give us a little update.
Good evening. So tonight, I'm not really highlighting the school climate committee. I'm highlighting the school psychology and the counseling department. We have a very highly educated group of psychologists and counselors to support our children. Dr. Rose is here with me tonight, and she'll be sharing with you in a minute. Unfortunately, our other 2 staff members couldn't be here. Kristen Demanch, who has her MSW and is our part-time school counselor, and Kayla Widmeyer, who joined us as full-time faculty person this year after interning at Beecher Road School for 2 years with Brenda Knudsen when she was here. So we were glad to have a smooth transition to her startup, having known the school and many of the children. She is a nationally certified school psychologist and has her 6th year. So we're very fortunate to have such a wonderful group of people. We've spoken before. Some of the things you're going to hear me say tonight, hopefully it'll be new for the new members, but you'll hear some of the themes that haven't changed because our core beliefs haven't changed. We value and celebrate the whole child. That's what Beecher Road School is about. I also had in my notes to talk about the celebrations that I was fortunate enough to attend, from preschoolers singing and dancing for their families, parents and grandparents, to watching fifth graders share with fourth graders on their iPads what's it going to be like to come to the next grade level. Really caring and thoughtful activities for students to celebrate. And that's really the climate and culture of Beach Road School. In terms of the psychology counseling department, there's a major shift that started about 3 years ago, where we really spoke about the need for the department to be cohesive across all grade levels. And even though at that point we were still 2 schools, we started to work together and really have made a professional learning community. Time for our school psychologists and counselor to come together with teacher assistants that support their work and look at information. Part of it is data-driven, part of it's problem-solving, but that happens on a weekly basis, a regular basis, and that kind of cohesive look at the development across the building, I think, is a major shift. I also wanted to point out that particularly the full-time faculty members are such active members of our entire school community, and especially both are members of the TAG committee, so they assist us in the whole process of talented and gifted. The Safe School Climate Committee, both the school psychologists are part of that committee. They are represented on the safety and security team, have been at report card meetings, have been at professional development meetings. So they're a part of everything that we're doing before and after school as well as during. So I would highlight that through this department, we provide counseling, instruction, and mentoring for students who may be struggling with social, emotional, and behavioral problems. We're trying to increase achievement by assessing barriers to learning and determining the best instructional strategies that will help improve learning. And we're really trying to promote wellness and resilience by reinforcing communication, social skills, problem solving, anger management, self-regulation, self-determination, those kinds of skills. So what does the counseling department do? They provide individual and group counseling for students. They may provide classroom interventions for social skills or lessons to support diversity or a particular situation that has to do with just that classroom. They complete assessments, psychoeducational assessments and developmental history, looking to identify and resolve barriers to learning, to design and implement student progress, monitoring systems, to support effective individualized instruction, and to help teachers help to motivate students so that we are all considering ourselves learners. They provide crisis intervention and prevention. They're at the 504 meetings, they're at the PPTs. They collaborate with families and staff members regularly, outside agencies and private providers. They help to teach parents and help with skills so that we can translate what we're learning in school to what's happening at home, and really provide the liaison between private practices and community resources. And when it's required, they're also supporting our 6th graders as they finish their student success plans to begin middle school. So it's such a wide and varied range. It could take hours, but I'm trying to shrink it. And we also, they all support the responsive classroom model for our Tier 1 intervention. Interventions for students with behavioral, social, emotional needs would include a lunch group, Project Safe, which Chris is going to talk to you a little bit more in a minute, and individual counseling, group counseling that might be focused on a particular topic. So we're looking at students who might have difficulty organizing their time, what we call executive functioning skills. Students who don't have those study skills, that are having difficulty with behavioral situations, their own self-discipline. But also students who might be afraid to come to school, who worry about things, who feel anxious, who might be considering or at some time be at risk to abuse substances. These are all students that we want to provide supports for before the problem arises to the greatest extent that we can. And when there's a problem that requires assessment, a functional behavioral assessment is often what we use to take a look at what is the reason for the behavior, what function does it serve for that child, and how can we intervene to provide for that student what they need so that they don't have to use that behavior to get what they need. We look at Dr. Ross Green's research. Kids do well if they can. If the child had the skills to exhibit adaptive behavior, he wouldn't be exhibiting challenging behavior, because doing well is always preferable to not doing well. So when we look at that, it's the proactive and preventative measures that will help us the most. So I'm going to ask Chris to highlight a couple of the things that we do that provide interventions within and across grades in Beecher Road School, and also that reach out to the larger Woodbridge community. And then I have one little closing comment.
So within all of that, I am going to mention,
doing all that all day.
I'm going to mention 4 prevention-based highlights that are funded by Primary Mental Health Project, which you as the Board of Education have been supporting for 17 years. That's a long time to do prevention. And what is prevention? It's social emotional competency building and resilience building. So it's been hard to say, okay, what are we trying to prevent? But we really know that when we promote social emotional competence through delayed gratification, handling disappointments, problem solving, decision making, you know, we have competent kids and we're really avoiding some bigger problems. So each year, the Woodbridge Board of Education approves this primary mental health project, and the State Department of Education provides us with funding. So the 4 highlights: universal screening. We've been doing this for 17 years. The last 4 years, we've extended our universal screening for social emotional competence up to from 4th, 5th, and up from K to 3 to 4th, 5th, and 6th. We've now extended it down in the past few years to the local preschools. This is through a different screening device, both research-based and normed. So this universal screening is really important because as a professional learning community for our counseling team, we're able to look at all of the kids across the grades and say, okay, there's some risk factors for this group of kids or for these individuals, so how do we support those children to be more resilient? And same true for the preschool children who are in our local preschools. Our play sessions, and I would call it PMHP, but that's the Primary Mental Health Project. Our play sessions, Project Safe help to build confidence and social connection for children who have risk factors. And this is self-exploration through play, through exploring feelings, through decision-making, through problem-solving. Third, our Devereaux Early Childhood Assessment. This is the other screening that we use. This is really a great normed universal screening that is tied into research-based interventions. So typically, because we don't have not all of our children coming into kindergarten go to local preschools, but typically we get 33 to 40% of children through this universal screening that looks at attachment, you know, how connected children are to the adults, to the children around them. Initiative, what initiative, assertiveness are they taking to initiate play, to initiate relationships, and self-regulation. So in response, if we see these risk factors, we are able to make research-based interventions that take place in the classroom. If those interventions are not enough, we add social skills groups. We may extend working partnerships to families. We may add play sessions to that. So the other important thing about the DECA is it's so powerful and so well researched that we've been able to extend to the preschools to build our partnerships and we hold summits.
We do. Summit.
We hold a winter summit, and this is a work in progress because change is a slow process, and building these partnerships takes time. You think something's a really great idea and you're going to move on it, but everybody has to buy into it in their own time. So we've had some really great accomplishments through this summit this year, with the beginnings of visitations from our school to the preschools around us and vice versa. The fourth highlight are the parent activities to help build our community. Our mindfulness and family yoga, that includes family yoga, continues to be well attended, between 55 and 65 participants each session, and we had 5. So I think that's great. And we've been doing that for a long time. So this is probably our greatest continuous attendance. So it's something that's building too. Project SAFE and DECA provide normed screenings and research-based interventions, and this is why the Primary Mental Health Project gets funded by the State Department of Education, even with budget cuts. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just have one quote to leave you with. I was looking at psychology today. This quote is from Erik Erikson. There is in every child at every stage a new miracle of vigorous unfolding. And when we take a look at that, what we're thinking about is none of us are complete when we're 5. We're not complete when we're 12. We can continue to evolve through life as we encounter new experiences and stimuli for greater understanding of ourselves and others. So within this department, what we're trying to do is help to build the skills and the resilience now, so that children can apply those as they move through their life and their experiences. Thanks.
Thank you.
Does anybody
have questions?
Yes.
I think that gives a wonderful sense of what you do, but I have no sense of what the outcomes are and how involved are you, and I recognize this as an area where we can probably only deal in very general numbers, but and what is the scope of your involvement, and what are the outcomes from applying all these processes and procedures?
So we actually do have color-coded graphs when we go through the screenings for the students, and we can track across the year as children move from an at-risk behavior to a more moderate behavior, and then to the successes. So that's the information that Chris, Kayla, and Kristen will take a look at and help. We actually had a discussion recently about the mid-year screens that the intermediate teachers filled out, and the teachers are wonderful about filling out these screens for us to give us that feedback, where we saw a child who was not having difficulty and then mid-year was, and so suddenly there was more attention, more intervention with the family in terms of making sure that we understood what was happening for that child. So much of it is very individualized in that regard, but we do have that larger information so that we can keep a pulse of what's happening. And then, of course, in special services, I meant to mention that school psychology and counseling are pupil services, so they serve the entire population of the building, special education and general education. In special education, of course, we have goals and objectives that we have to monitor regularly with data.
Lisa?
I'm just trying to understand a little bit. You're screening, are you screening all the kids? So in that sense, are you, who's receiving these services? Obviously, some of them it's clearly a subset of the kids. At some level, are all the students in the school engaged in this? Are they being screened? Are they?
We're screening all.
A universal screen is for everybody, and we have school policy, board policy on that. So just as there's screening for language arts or screening for math, there's screening for all children to look at resilience factors.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You know, having been here just almost 9 years, I marvel something, looking at children who are in kindergarten who have particular problems, dealing with issues and so on, and then watching them go through the grades and seeing how they, just like a child progresses academically, to see how a child progresses with their social emotional development, overcoming challenges is a very heartening kind of situation. There's a core value here at the school, and that's a child-centered one, that every child is important, and we have a staff that goes after every child. In a large population, there are some children who have more pronounced issues and so on. Whether they're more pronounced or not, the idea is to try to keep working and going after them and supporting our children. So we can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing. Yes?
One thing, we're very good at seeing behaviors that are external, that acting out behaviors. What our screening picks up are the shy and anxious children who tend to internalize, and I just think that's great, because sometimes these issues are invisible to us, and even across different districts, children who suffer from selective mutism, which is a shy, anxious condition, have responded to Project Safe the Play sessions. So this is an example.
And we thank the board. You can't take it for granted. We're supporting a team like this here. Again, we have 2 psychologists and a social worker. And in the future, we may ask for more personnel, because it's such a heavy emphasis that we put on social emotional. It goes hand in hand with that academic development. So we thank you for that. The next thing is the Beecher Road School renovation project update. Well, I said that the school building facility is going to be a construction site on June 25th. And I'll ask Mr. Kulo if he could just summarize some of the anticipated work at the school during the summer. And I say anticipated because right now the contract was signed a short while ago and orders have been put in. And if there are any surprises, we'll get back to you as far as that goes.
Thank you, Dr. Steller. Give you a brief synopsis of the coming weeks, where we're very fortunate, in my opinion, actually. We've got a very proactive group in Paul Gandy, who's the project manager, and Matt Ward, the construction manager. Paul and Matt are on site almost 5 days a week. And if they're not here and traveling, their appendages by cell phone and iPad, they're very reachable. So the plan, we're having weekly owners meetings where all the finite details, the planning, who's going to be in the building, who's not going to be in the building. Last week there was a kickoff meeting with all the subcontractors. Greg Kula had attended that meeting throughout. It was a walkthrough of Beecher Road School to help pre-familiarize, kind of like a getting to know school. So you're coming to kindergarten, so you're coming to work at Beecher. There is a lot of planning, and there's coordination too. So for example, the custodial staff is going to do their book of business as usual this summer, but we're coordinating painting some classrooms, those classrooms that are not part of the scope of the building upgrade, and really continuing our theme. As you recall, last year we did the 5th and 6th grade classrooms. This year the focus will be on the D wing. So sort of everybody gets a turn of fresh paint every now and then. But that coordinating and scheduling of when will there be HVAC work or electrical work in the classrooms, Paul and Matt are working with Greg Kula to really get the black and white, to nail down so that we know who's going to be in what section of the building at what time, and what's the plan for, what area of ceiling is going to be ripped down June 24th so that we can begin conduit and cable running and window wall replacement, all of that. I do want to take time to mention, again, Paul and Matt have been very helpful. For example, as Bree had mentioned earlier, with the upcoming work with the playground, coordinating so that we don't have a mishmash of backhoes and bulldozers out on the North Campus, getting that work planned out, and we are setting up a calendar so that we can all look at it and know as formal as possible at this stage. But as Dr. Stella said, this is still a moving target, that hopefully this coming week we'll be able to finalize some of the more concrete examples. But really the headline for this evening, a lot of discussion and collaboration going on with key ESG personnel.
And what I would add to that too, thank you, Al, for that report. What I would add is that we anticipate that the focus this summer will be on completing the A wing. Now, I use the word anticipate because the supplies have to come in and be here and have to meet the time schedules. So you look at the A wing, look at the roofs for the A, B, and C wing. That's a major thing that we're looking at. Plus all the lighting work and controls and things like that. And we're looking at security things also, security items. I've learned from past renovation projects in my career, you always have to be ready in case there's a change or a problem, and we'll get back to the board if there is any surprises as we go along. This will be very closely monitored by our staff. Oh, yeah.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Gina, I'm sorry, Gina had something. I
I'm just
apologize.
saying the
didn't
same
see-
thing that you-
Okay, you're paying attention.
I was
Yeah.
saying the same thing that you said,
Yeah.
Margaret.
An introduction
Okay.
and then...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Another item, it's been a busy year, and one of the key items on the runway has been the report card, reporting system to the parents. No matter how busy we have been this past year, it was important to move along with the report card. Why? Because the older report card, the present report card is so old that it doesn't match completely our teaching and learning style. So I met, and the board, another important reason is the board charged us with coming up with a report card. So I spoke with the administrative team at the beginning of the year, spoke with the faculty, and I appointed Ms. Prisco as the chair of a committee that worked on the report card this past year. It was open to the entire staff, anyone could have participated, and she'll talk to you about the process and give you an executive summary. Our intent is to launch the report card sometime next year, but what I'm charging the committee is to continue, although there's a prototype that's been developed, to work on that over the summer months, to follow up with interaction with the staff, to get parent feedback as far as language, and to plan orientation sessions with our parent community, because it's a change from the type of report card we have now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stella. That gave a pretty good overview. So when Dr. Stella first charged us with looking at a standards-based report card, one of the questions that we asked when we sat both with administrative team and some key members of the faculty, and then when we sat with those members who joined us on the committee, is what does that look like? And what does that mean? Why do we have a report card? To help parents have a more comprehensive understanding of the progress that their child is making in school, and to make sure that the report card reflects what it is that we're actually teaching. And so it also, a standards-based report card sets the child against the standard, not an arbitrary number. I know those of you who have children maybe in the middle school or high school are used to some traditional grading. It will be a paradigm shift for our families, but for our teachers as well. So this committee then looked at the standards and decided as a whole group, what would the power standards be? What standards would give us the most information about our students? We did that within math and language arts specifically. And we decided that we needed to make it feature specific as well. So we really value art, and we really value music, and we really value physical education and world language. So we went to those specialists and separately as a faculty and said, okay, where does this fit for you, and where does it need to be special for Beecher? And art is one of those places where we wanted to keep what we had. So when working with Mrs. Atchison, Ms. Slepian, that won't be on the report card as we've determined. Physical education will not be one satisfactory or a 1 or 2 or 3 on the report card. There's standards that they've worked on over time. So those will be a little bit different than what you would think of as a grade on a report card. But we brought these standards to our entire faculty on more than one occasion and had them look at the standards and say, okay, help us. Help us define what it is you as a grade level team, as we've taken as a committee, what are we missing, what do we need to add? And we did that on a few occasions, brought back the feedback. I've met with some key members of the committee to do some summer work. One of the things that we've noticed is we want to make the language consistent. consistent from 1 to 6 as we look at the standards. And one thing that we'll ask from parents is when we do have a draft that we think is ready for viewing to parents, is we'll bring it to some parents and say, is this language clear to you? After looking at this report card, do you know what your child is learning? If you read each of these standards, do you have a clear understanding of what that means as far as progress reporting? So we will ask for some input from parents. You know, we've decided that these are the standards that we expect children to meet. And we'll also have a place, one thing that we would not give up is the narrative piece. That is very, very important in an elementary school. I am a mom who has those grades on the phone, and that's not a place for us. That's not where we really feel we want for our reporting system. We also wanted to make sure that it stuck with Beecher. We took this, it is a prototype, it is a draft, and shared it with our consultants from Columbia because we do use the workshop model. And they were able to see it. Where do we address these standards within our workshop model, within our units of study? And they were extremely helpful in helping us to identify. So not only will the language be part of the summer work, but our math and language arts teams will be looking at, okay, these are the standards that we are looking at across the grades. What are we using to assess these standards? And what does it mean to achieve these standards? So there's a lot of work to be done, and we look forward to some input from parents as well when we are ready to share that document. My role going forward for the technology part of it, to make it digital, we currently use PowerSchool kind of for our database system. We design what we want. PowerSchool, our ACES representative for PowerSchool, helps us make it fit into a digital format. That's their role. So I'll do that work with them over the summer. Questions?
I actually do have one. With the report card that's being proposed, or you're thinking about, have like differentiation in the classroom, would have it reflected in the report card as well? That this was a tag student and comments for the tag student, or would it have a situation or a section for this was a special ed student, or how would that be incorporated?
So there are some rules for identifying children with needs, either special services, right, on either end. But in the narrative piece, which is one of the reasons why we don't want to give up the narrative piece, there is a general disclaimer, and correct me if I'm wrong, if a student has an IEP, there is a general disclaimer on there. I want to make sure I say it.
There will be, I think, on the new one. We have not had it.
But it's so old that we haven't had it.
Right.
There should be.
Right.
That's one of the reasons.
So the child can't be designated as a student with special needs or a child with disabilities on the report card. That's confidential. Can't go in the cumulative file. That has to stay in the confidential file. So it's difficult, and that's why our personal contact and narratives are going to be so important.
So, for example, if a student has his instruction or her instruction has been differentiated to, and I'll give you an example. So, if first grade we are looking at place value, and in the beginning of the year, place value to the hundredths place, but the child, in our case, may be working to the thousandths place. That might be a place where you would be able to say, has already met the benchmark at this time. This is what we've done to go beyond that. So I'm working to try to make sure that there is more than one place in which you can write narrative. I'm working that out with the technology right now. The other part of that is a child may meet a benchmark at a certain time of year, but then that benchmark increases as we go across time. So maybe they've met it for this time, but the next time, maybe they're progressing towards it. They haven't met it. So that's part of the individual learning pathways for children too. But we wanted, the narrative was very, that was a non-negotiable for us here as part of the committee.
I think, Lisa, did you?
To some extent, you answered my question. I was curious about the narrative piece when you said keeping the narrative piece. It's a new thing for our report cards, right? We do not currently have any kind of...
It's a small text. It's variable, and it's a small text box on the report card where people can write in some comments.
Free text, not a choice of 6.
And that will not be a choice. So again, non-negotiable. There will not be a drop-down list of comments that will be individualized.
But it will be expected that every teacher does a narrative, because that's not how it is now. There's a narrative area, but not every
never seen one.
Right, so some parents have never seen one, but
So there will be a narrative piece for that for everybody.
a requirement. I mean, you know, there's a difference between having a box per narrative and saying that it's expected that
That will be the
you will fill in. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to commend you, Ms. Briscoe, and the committee for the hard work that you put into this and the continuing work.
You're done? Okay, Facilities Committee, Karen's not here, so we'll skip that. Building Committee, I think Dr. Stella already gave us all the information on the upgrade. At this point, the project is really, unless there's things that change, the town building committee is really only dealing with things that come up that might be different than what the expectations are. But the day-to-day planning and all of that is now, you know, in the school, so. Finance Committee, Carl.
Yes, thank you. We had a meeting a week ago, and the committee has been looking at a variety of preliminary formats for reporting to you. That's the word of the week. Do I get $25?
No, but you have to say thank you to Ms. Vicuzzi. That's you have to say thank you for the word of the week. She's right here. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs.
Okay,
Vicuzzi.
thank you, Mrs. Vicuzzi.
And the outcome of the very good conversation that we had was to invite you, if not to direct you, to pay attention in the material that is available to you, the superintendent recommendations for use of 2013-2014 projected surplus. And the reason we think that's valuable for you is that it highlights really all of the things that go on with regard to budgeting and with regard to the behavior of the various costs that we routinely budget for. This year was another year in which there was a positive variance, a very favorable magnitude. And the nature of that is that it's in no way predetermined or calculated. It happens. And for the last 3 or 4 years, that happening has been favorable. Not because we knew more, but because we were lucky with regard to how all these variable items perform. So you'll see the breakdown amongst the outcomes, those that produce favorable variances and those that produce negative variances. And if we were to have been using this format on year by year, we would have seen that all of those interconnected pieces change. Sometimes they're positive and sometimes they're negative. The other value in the report, which we recommend to you, is a detailed list of the uses of the favorable variance of the cash that was generated by the favorable variance in the general education portion of the budget. And thirdly, the report highlights the fact that we have, and we worry about the source of the budget variance. We had a positive variance also in special education. And the practice has been that the special education would be looked at on a communicative basis with the town. Where we had an unfavorable variance, and we haven't had one for 5 years, we would not hold the general education budget hostage to that. We wouldn't have to cut back on things being planned for the broad range of the youngsters by virtue of what happened in special ed. This year we followed the flip side of that is when we're lucky enough to have favorable variances arising in special education, we will return that money to the town. And the town has been very generous with regard to that process, and a portion of that favorable variance arising in special education has been made available for the general uses in the school. So take a look at it. I'm sure that the global television network tonight is watching soccer. When you get home tonight, take a look at it. It's great reading.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Carl?
I want to thank Carl for that comprehensive report, and I want to thank Al Pulo for putting together such a clear, easy to understand table here.
Okay. Lisa?
Cave, not a lot. They're holding a leadership conference July 22nd in Old Saybrook, if anybody's interested. And the date and topic for this year's Cave conference have been set. It's going to be November 14th and 15th. And the theme is Public Education in 2027, Courageous Leadership Teams.
And there's no ACES report. New business, Dr. Stella? Certified staff appointments?
I'll go in by saying that we ratify certified staff appointments effective July 1, 2014 as follows. Amanda Janicki at salary of $62,747. Step 8, Nicole Rizzo at a salary of $49,399. Step 3, Mega Rock at a salary of $54,135. Step 5, Jacqueline Scalia at a salary of $68,654. Step 10, and Lana Moore at $57,949. Step 5.
Second.
Take it away.
Well, I would just say that we're bringing on a very strong team of educators, and that was not by accident. A lot of work has gone into committee work, identifying, we had lots and lots of resumes coming in for each of the positions. Our committee has, well, administrators and teachers have stepped forward and really helped working with me to analyze the different resumes and to have comprehensive interviews, but also having in-class kind of presentations and watching people teach and so on, recommendations, a whole formula of things. So we feel confident that we're bringing on a very strong group of teachers. Right now we're hiring 2 first-grade teachers, 1 second-grade teacher, 1 third-grade teacher, and a speech teacher. So that's 5 people. That's an important number of people coming in. We're expanding the number of classrooms with the support of the board and the town. So we want to make sure we always bring in strong educators who are leaders of learning, have that passion for education, and have that spark about them. So we make decisions in hope, and we have a lot of hope that this team will work out.
Any questions?
Yeah, just 2 observations. At the Finance Committee meeting, Dr. Stella assured us that these appointments are within the budgeted figures, and has promised us in July a faculty profile to see what impact this has on our long-term planning process.
I just have one quick question. If someone comes in at step 8, does that mean that they have 8 years of experience, or could it, I don't know how that matches up.
If they come in at step 8, they have 7 years of experience with them. The contract gives them the benefit of assuming they'll complete the year, so they come in with that up front.
Okay. So, and do you start at step 1 when you're a new teacher? So,
actually, the first step in the contract is step 3.
Okay.
Right, and that was a function of negotiations. I believe that was the prior contract as well.
So does that mean that anyone, whether they're newly out or in their first or second year, they start on step 3?
That's correct.
But once you're after step 3, you have to have had 3 years. You can't negotiate and come in and say, I'd like to start at step 8.
Correct. Once you start on step, you can't negotiate.
Just checking.
It takes form of negotiations, and for example, if there's a future year where there's a step freeze, that candidate moves experience level, but does not move on the step within the salary scale.
But if they come from another system, they could have started in step 1.
Yeah.
From another
district.
They have prior public teaching experience.
Yeah, they get credit for prior public teaching experience, no matter what the district.
And just out of curiosity, I just want to know, but not anything related to this, but if someone has 10 years of experience and wants to leave their district, could you theoretically hire them at 8, or is there a law that mandates you come bring them in at 11?
We have to, because of our practices, past practices, and equity-wise, give them the years that they have.
You do?
Yeah, so there's an equity issue, and otherwise you'll get into
Huh?
excuse me?
And that ties to tenure
It
as
ties in
well.
with their tenure, yes.
So if someone comes here at step 8, they automatically have tenure?
No, they're in the new district, so they have to go through
The 18,
right, Marcia? They have two years of tenure.
If they've attained tenure in a prior district, they have to still complete 2 full years
Yeah.
here, and then they're tenured here.
So it's a big step for someone to come from another district because they are hoping to that tenure. Like I say about the candidates that are coming here, they really want to come to Beecher Road School. We look for that quality too. Who will fall in love with the school? Who has the attributes that will make them, a good part of the staff, and they'll want to stay and blend in with our philosophy.
Okay. Is there any other questions on this? Okay, all those in favor? Okay. That's it. Marcia, did anybody come up? Sneak behind you?
Behind you, that's okay.
No. Okay. All right, then I guess.
Second.
I know, you're just dying for this, okay.
We wish
All
everyone
those
a
in
happy
favor?
summer.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone, thank you.